Hello everyone and welcome to my Dune 2 review. Spoiler alert for the movie Dune 2, obviously. March, Dune 2, action. Let's get started with some of the negatives. I really only have two criticisms of this movie. First off, I did get some complaints from Logan and Braxton that the movie was a little too long, but to me, I was engaged in every single scene, every single character, every single frame. The second problem was that it ended. I mean, that's a pretty good problem to have if that's one of your biggest problems. Now let's talk about why this movie is in Best Picture territory. I love how anti-blockbuster this movie is. Every big chosen one narrative is filled with excitement for the new coming Messiah. But in this movie, every time that we hear the word Messiah or chosen one come up, it's just filled with disappointment. This movie doesn't even want Paul to become the Messiah. And once he does, especially in the final battle, Paul becoming the one, I don't know, it just felt wrong almost. I can't believe this movie only had a $190 million budget. It looks so good. Like, $190 million is a lot of money. But compare it to what other studios are doing with these $250 million blockbusters. It was a pretty good special effects wise, at least. Greg Fraser is a mastermind. My, oh my. Like, how long did it take for him to envision this? Every single scene, every single location, every single shot, it's just perfection. I mean, it was unbelievable. I was giggling in my seat when I was watching it. This movie starts off with a very simple line. Power over spice is power over all. And Paul must gain the power that is given to him through the prophecy. And just the way that it's portrayed, it's perfect. And the way that they continued the overall theme from the first movie, when his father was like, a great man doesn't seek to lead, he's called to it. I mean, obviously he did a better acting job than I did, but... and then this movie had Paul literally go like, yeah, I'm not the Lisan al-Gaib, I just want to learn. And then to have him learn that he needs to be the Lisan al-Gaib in order to save his family. Very good. Opening scenes are super important. They set the tone for the rest of the movie. This opening scene alone had me like, okay, I'm 100% on board on whatever this movie chooses to be. I knew in the first 10 minutes that I had entered cinematic territory that only few movies have crossed. When people start naming off best sequels of all time, this movie deserves to be in those conversations. It's in the same group of Empire Strikes Back, in my opinion. Empire Strikes Back, Dark Knight, Godfather 2, all of those. The opening scenes, imagery, and cinematography was off the charts. Not Paul or Jessica said a single word until after the fighting was done. I love the recap of events by Florence Pugh. It was just the right amount of exposition to where it was justified, and having it at the start is perfect because we don't have to complain about hearing it later in the film. If you remember, in the first movie, Chani was our narrator, but now it's Arulian. I don't know how to say her name. Florence Pugh's character. And that really sets her up as a foil to Chani, especially for that ending, which we'll talk about a little later. There were just multiple scenes in this movie that just cut to silence. No dialogue, no score, just silence. And it might have been the best thing about this movie. When you go to the movies, usually listen to the booms and explosions in order to be immersed in the world that's being created. But it was so interesting to me that the entire opposite, silence and the suspension that it created, immersed me more than explosions ever could. This movie was made to watch in the movie theater. If anything, this movie and even Oppenheimer brought back going to the movies from extinction. I could feel every explosion, every thump from the thumping device, every move the worm made, just the best cinematic experience that I have ever had in the movie theaters. Something that I noticed in the movie was that Chani's eyes weren't super blue compared to, let's say, Stilgar's eyes. And I'm pretty sure that has to do with the amount of spice or the amount of time spent in the desert. The next scene I wanted to point out was when they were all under the sand with snorkels and then they popped out of the sand and destroyed the spice collecting tank. I found that scene very, very cool. I definitely was not expecting it. It's something that you would like find out of a video game or something. Another scene that I loved was when Paul pulled out his father's ring and put it in his right pocket over his... Wait, no. The left pocket over his heart. It was flipped though. You get it. It really shows how much being an Atreides means to him, and I think that helps in his quest to become the leader of the Fremen. One of the coolest scenes that was entirely unexpected was when the Harkonnen base just blew up. Like, no one knew what was happening. 80% of the spice was lost. It was amazing. Alright, now we're transitioning into the last third of the movie, starting off with the Feyd-Rautha sequence. I'll touch on Feyd-Rautha's character in a little bit, but for now I just want to talk about the scenes that he was in. When I first saw the black and white, I was like, oh man, I'm ready. Everything from him licking the blade, to him killing the servants, to him fighting in the arena, just so well done from a production standpoint, just so well done from Greg Fraser. This movie was so violent and dark when it needed to be, between killing off the servants to Paul walking right into the Emperor's room and stabbing Baron Harkonnen. There's a lot of blood in this movie, I realized, and I love it. Lastly, I want to talk about the amazing finale sequence, Paul versus Feyd-Rautha. It may be the best choreographed, best, most intimate hand-to-hand combat scene that I have ever seen. Every little move had me on the edge of my seat. And then to follow it up with a full 180 and have Paul ask for Arulin's hand in marriage, such a good twist for someone who didn't read the books. I cannot wait for this third movie, but that being said, I don't know if anything can beat this masterpiece. Speaking of Star Wars, you just can't help but notice the parallels. The twin sunset of Arrakis, the stormtroopers / Harkonnen, the Emperor, Paul's nightmares in bed with Chani, Paul literally saying a line about massacring the Fremen. And then Feyd-Rautha, which reminds me so much of Darth Maul. I was very upset when he didn't get the screen time that he should have deserved. I feel like I could watch an entire spin-off movie or even TV show centered around him, but that will never happen. In a movie filled with great scenes, sound, cinematography, probably my favorite scene was when Paul rode the worm. The sound and music cut out, and all you could hear is the thumping and the rustling of the worm. The anticipation and suspense that this scene created was unmatched. It's probably the best scene in the movie. It kind of acts as an overall theme for the movie. At first, Paul struggled and almost didn't grab onto the worm, but he continued with it and eventually hooked onto it. And just as he did that, triumphant music kicks in. Just overall, so well done. Now, for the acting in this movie. All that I can say is that the best actor in Dune 2 is whoever the camera is currently on. Starting off with Dave Bautista, it's very easy for a guy like Dave Bautista to pull off a big, intimidating menace by just screaming at people. But over the course of the two films, he really transformed into his role. In the first movie, he was just a big lackey for Baron Harkonnen, but in this movie, he showed us real vulnerabilities, and in the end, it kind of made you almost feel sorry for him. While she didn't have too much screen time in this movie, I expect, like Chani in the first movie, that Florence Pugh will have a super increased workload for the next movie. But from the glimpses that I've seen of her, I think she'll be great. Javier Bardem did amazing in this movie. For someone who wasn't all that familiar with him, I wasn't expecting much, but I just love how his religious beliefs, they were contrasted with Chani's beliefs. And other than Paul and Jessica, Chani and Stilgar were on screen the most. And I think that's why the believers versus the non-believers debate was so interesting to me. Now we're really getting into our stars. Rebecca Ferguson was amazing. I do think that her performance was on the level of an Oscar nomination performance. Just every scene. Even when the focus wasn't on her, my eyes just went directly to her. While not an Oscar performance from Austin Butler, he probably gave the coolest performance. I think that if he was given more screen time, I think he would I think he would be a pretty good villain of all time. He would be in that conversation. If you're the lead actor in a blockbuster movie like this, you better bring your A game. And boy, did Timmy bring it. I think after a couple of years and after a couple more roles, I think Timothée Chalamet is going to be a very sought-out actor. And this is only the beginning. Telling the Reverend Mother to silence at the finale was just, man, it was, what a scene. Him yelling at the people in Fremen at the Fremen meeting and showcasing why he's the Lisan al-Gaib, just amazing. And even in the quietest moments, Paul and Chani's relationship was not forced at all. Now, if I had to give the MVP to someone in this movie, I would probably give it to Zendaya. Now, this was an Oscar-winning performance. Now, will she win? It depends, but I felt like she should. Just the way at a certain point, she had no more lines. And she had to convey everything that she was feeling through her eyes. Including the moment where Paul wakes up. The entire room is watching their Messiah being brought back from life. And they're all having this most spiritual moment of their life. And Chani just gives the audience just a sharp reminder that many still don't believe in the Lisan al-Gaib. Alright, as for the grade, this is all what you're waiting for. I'm going to give it a 97, which makes it one of our top films. It makes it right behind Across the Spider-Verse and Oppenheimer. Oh, and above Oppenheimer. And on the action scale, it's going to be right behind Everything Everywhere All at Once at a 99. So, yeah, that was my Dune 2 review. It was a pretty long review, but like I said in my March review, I kind of just wanted to take my time on this. It was a really good movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. So, yeah. Thanks, guys, for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you have not already, and I'll see you guys later.